Multidimensional chosen ones, why you were born into the most chaotic families. What if I told you that your soul didn't land in your family by accident? That the chaos you were born into, the dysfunction, the emotional wounds, the violence, the addiction, the abandonment wasn't a cosmic mistake, but a deliberate assignment. And not just any assignment, but one chosen by a soul who knew exactly what it was doing. You see, you didn't come here just to survive. You came to transform. And you didn't choose the easy road because you weren't built for mediocrity. You were born into chaos because you are a multidimensional chosen one. And only the strongest souls are sent into the deepest darkness with a mission to bring the light. Let's take a breath before we go further, because this isn't going to be a fluffy story about everything happening for a reason in some vague feel-good way. This is deeper. This is about soul contracts, karmic grids, ancestral wounds, and why certain souls are placed into family systems that are designed to break them until they remember they came to rebuild them from a higher frequency. If you're watching this, you've probably felt the weight of being the emotional anchor in your family. Maybe you were the scapegoat, the black sheep, the sensitive one, the misunderstood one. You didn't fit in, not because you were broken, but because you were awake in a house that was still asleep.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You might have asked yourself 1,000 times, why me? Why was I born into this? But what if the better question is, what was I meant to awaken through this? Because the multidimensional chosen ones are not average souls. We are systems disruptors. We're born into lineage lines that have been repeating the same unconscious patterns for generations: abuse, silence, shame, fear, secrecy, and we come in not to participate in the cycle, but to end it. That's why everything in your life has felt heavier, more intense, more emotionally saturated. You're not crazy. You're coded differently. From the moment you arrived, your energy started to shake the foundations of the old system. But no one told you that. Instead, they called you too emotional, too intense, too rebellious, too weird. You felt wrong in your own home, like you were speaking a language no one else could hear. That's because your soul carries multidimensional memory. You remember truths that your family forgot. You see through the lies that have been normalized. And when you tried to speak that truth, you were punished for it. Not because you were wrong, but because your light threatened the darkness that had been hiding comfortably for decades. But here's what most people miss: your family didn't reject you because they hated you. They rejected you because your presence triggered their unhealed pain. Your vibration was too high for their suppressed emotions to stay buried. Your authenticity made their masks feel unbearable. And so, consciously or not, they tried to dim you through guilt, through gaslighting, through emotional manipulation. And you, in your innocence, started believing something was wrong with you. You internalized their pain, their projections, their fears. You spent years trying to fix yourself when all along you were being forged. Multidimensional chosen ones are not here to play small. You came with codes in your DNA, spiritual technologies that activate through pressure. That's why your life has been intense. That's why you felt like you're living 10 lifetimes in one. Because your soul is ancient. And it came here with the agreement that it would awaken under fire. You chose a chaotic family not because you were being punished, but because that chaos would catalyze your evolution. The trauma wasn't the mission, but the trauma was the trigger that would unlock the mission. Let me go even deeper with you. Have you ever felt like you were parenting your own parents? Like you were the emotional support system, the therapist, the voice of reason in a house that felt like a constant storm? That's not a coincidence. You weren't just born into your family, you were born for your family. Not in a self-sacrificial way, but in a soul contract way, you came to shift the trajectory. And even though it's been painful, even though it's often felt like you were drowning in other people's emotions, you've been doing sacred work. Just by surviving, just by feeling. Because here's the truth, multidimensional chosen ones process energy for the entire lineage. When you cry, you're not just crying for yourself, you're releasing centuries of suppressed grief. When you set a boundary, you're not just protecting yourself. You're teaching the entire ancestral line how to reclaim sovereignty. When you choose healing over numbing, you're altering the vibration of your bloodline. And that's why the universe placed you where it did, right in the middle of the storm. Not to be destroyed by it, but to redirect it. And yes, it's exhausting. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, there are days when you want to walk away from it all. But let me ask you something. What if your very presence in that family is the miracle they've been waiting for? What if your awakening is the key that unlocks healing not just for your generation, but for the ones before and the ones to come? What if the chaos was the perfect environment to activate your latent gifts, your empathy, your intuition, your clarity, your ability to see into the soul of things? You've been told that your family is your foundation, but for us, it's our training ground. It's the place where we learn to stand in truth when everything around us is built on denial. It's where we learn to love ourselves even when we're surrounded by conditional love. It's where we learn that our worth was never dependent on whether or not they understood us. It's where we learn to remember who we were before the world and even our own blood tried to make us forget. So, the next time you feel like you were cursed to be born into chaos, I want you to ask yourself, what if this isn't a curse at all? What if this is the sacred ground where your soul chose to awaken? What if every wound was a portal, every betrayal a redirection, every breakdown a divine setup for your breakthrough? The DNA of dissonance. How ancestral chaos activates dormant spiritual power. There is a hidden intelligence inside the chaos you were born into, a kind of spiritual algorithm encoded deep within your bloodline. It's tempting to think of your family's dysfunction as random or tragic, but when you start to see with multidimensional eyes, you realize something extraordinary. The very dissonance that hurt you most was designed to awaken you first. The trauma didn't come to destroy your light, it came to reveal it. It came to rattle the cage of your inherited programming so violently that you'd have no choice but to question everything. That questioning is where your true power begins. Multidimensional chosen ons do not incarnate into peace, they incarnate into pressure. Because pressure activates the codes. When you're constantly surrounded by emotional volatility, contradiction, manipulation, or silence, your soul begins to scan beneath the surface. It starts to feel what others cannot feel. You become hyper-aware, not because you want to be, but because you have to be. This sensitivity, which once felt like a curse, is actually your first activated gift, intuitive intelligence. You learned from a young age how to read energy in a room before a word was even said. You could feel tension before it broke. You picked up on lies without knowing why. That's not paranoia, that's spiritual technology being turned on by necessity. But the deeper gift is not just in sensing, it's in decoding. You begin to realize that your family's dysfunction is a language. Every unspoken truth, every toxic pattern, every hidden emotion is a signal. And as you awaken, you start to translate those signals into understanding. You begin to see how your mother's emotional absence wasn't personal, it was generational. You begin to understand that your father's anger wasn't about you, it was unresolved pain that no one ever gave him permission to feel. You stop taking things as personal attacks and start seeing them as ancestral echoes. And in that moment, you stop being a victim of your lineage and start becoming a healer of it. But that role doesn't come easy. It comes with the weight of responsibility you never asked for. You may have felt like the adult in the room when you were still a child. You may have been the one your siblings leaned on, the one who tried to keep everything together, the one who sensed what others refused to see. And that burden left marks. It's exhausting to carry the emotional residue of generations. But here's the secret. Those emotions are alchemical fuel. Every ounce of pain you've metabolized has been forging a kind of inner power that can't be taught, it must be earned through experience. And it's not just emotional. There is a spiritual architecture woven into your DNA. Science might call them epigenetic markers, but the mystics know them as soul codes, dormant patterns that only activate under specific conditions. For chosen ones, those conditions are often extreme emotional environments. The chaos in your family didn't just affect your psychology, it opened portals in your consciousness. The betrayals cracked open your heart. The neglect forced you inward into realms where others fear to tread. And in those inner realms you began to remember, not in words but in resonance. You began to tap into wisdom that didn't come from this lifetime. That's because your soul has walked dimensions before. And now, in this body, in this bloodline, you're reclaiming the fragmented pieces of your multidimensional memory. When you start to understand that your family's dysfunction was the exact terrain your soul chose to awaken its gifts, everything changes. You stop wishing for a different past. You stop waiting for apologies from people who may never evolve. You stop trying to fix others and start focusing on your own frequency. Because here's the paradox: the more you heal yourself, the more you heal the entire grid. You are not isolated. You are a node in a vast web of ancestral and universal energy. Every time you choose presence over reactivity, every time you choose truth over silence, every time you choose self-love over codependence, you shift the entire system. This is why the path of the chosen one is so intense. You're not just working through your own karma, you're clearing debris from thousands of years of inherited trauma. And yet, that's also why your power is so rare. While others are still trying to escape or deny their origin stories, you are learning to transcend them. Not by bypassing, but by integrating. You're learning to hold the pain and the wisdom in the same breath. You're learning to stand in the eye of the storm and remember who you are beyond it. So I ask you now, what if the chaos that birthed you was the exact alchemy needed to awaken your soul's blueprint? What if your sensitivity, your emotional depth, your ability to perceive what others miss, what if these aren't burdens at all? What if they're sacred tools, forged in the fire of dysfunction, now ready to be wielded with awareness? You weren't born into a broken lineage. You were born into an unfinished one, and you are the continuation of that story, not to repeat it, but to rewrite it. This is the era of reclamation. And you, whether you feel ready or not, are the one your ancestors have been waiting for. The sacred role of the disruptor, how black sheep break the matrix from within. You never fit in not because you were flawed, but because you were meant to stand out. The role of the black sheep in the family is not a punishment. It's a position of sacred disruption. If you've always felt like the outsider, the misunderstood one, the emotional lightning rod, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because everything in the system around you is rooted in illusion, and your presence alone starts to crack it open. The black sheep is not the broken link, it is the awakening node. And when you understand the deeper truth of that role, you stop trying to blend in and start leaning into your mission. You see, Systems thrive on repetition. Families, especially those steeped in unhealed trauma, often operate like closed loops, repeating the same stories of shame, silence, control, and fear generation after generation. These loops are what we call the matrix of dysfunction. It's not just behavioral, it's energetic. It's a frequency that's been normalized, passed down like an inheritance. Most people stay locked in this loop without ever questioning it. But the moment a chosen one enters the system, things start to shift. Why? Because your frequency doesn't match the loop. You don't resonate with the silence. You ask questions you're not supposed to ask. You say things that make people uncomfortable not because you want to, but because you have to. From the outside, you might look like a rebel, the one who can't follow the rules, the one who brings up the family secrets, the one who won't just let it go. But from a spiritual perspective, you are the disruptor frequency, the sacred code breaker. You are the one who came to expose what's been hidden, to speak what's been silenced, to challenge what's been accepted as normal. And yes, that makes people uncomfortable. But that's exactly the point. Discomfort is the first step toward awakening. And let me be clear, playing this role is not easy. It often means being rejected, scapegoated, or even vilified by the very people you're here to help heal. But this rejection is not a reflection of your worth, it's confirmation of your impact. You were never sent to be liked. You were sent to be felt. You were sent to stir something in the DNA of your lineage, to activate dormant awareness in those around you. And even if they don't understand it consciously on a soul level, they feel it. That's why your presence can feel like a threat to those still asleep. You remind them of everything they've buried and everything they still fear to face. But here's the deeper wisdom. Your resistance to the family matrix is not just about them, it's about you. Every time you stand up instead of staying silent, you reclaim a piece of your own soul. Every time you refuse to betray yourself just to keep the peace, you break the spell of generational self-abandonment. Every time you choose your truth over their comfort, you are reprogramming the field. You are not just freeing yourself, you are collapsing timelines of dysfunction. This is the sacred role of the disruptor, to break the patterns from within, while refusing to lose yourself in the process. And yes, there are days when it feels like the weight is too much. There are moments when you wonder if it's even worth it, if you should just give in, play along, stay quiet. But that's when you must remember, you didn't come here to survive the matrix. You came to dismantle it. And you're not doing it through violence or force, you're doing it through vibration. Your healing is the revolution. Your authenticity is the system glitch. Your refusal to conform is the very frequency that starts to unravel the generational code of suffering. This is why healing isn't just personal, it's planetary. When you choose to heal, you're not just making your life better. You are becoming a ripple in an ocean of unconsciousness. You are sending signals out to others who are quietly holding the same pain, the same shame, the same story. And when they see you rise, when they see you speak, when they see you break free, they start to believe that maybe they can too. That's how the matrix breaks, not in one grand explosion, but in a million quiet acts of liberation. So if you're still wondering why you were born into your family, why you've always felt like the one who doesn't belong, understand this. You don't belong to the system. You belong to the soul. And the soul doesn't come here to fit in. It comes to awaken. It comes to disrupt. It comes to remember. You are not here by mistake. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are the exact vibration that was needed to shake the foundation. And while it may be lonely at times, you are never truly alone. Because every time a chosen one breaks free, an entire ancestral line starts to stir. Becoming the anchor of light, rewriting the legacy you were born to transform. There comes a point in every chosen one's journey where the storm begins to quiet, not because the world outside has changed, but because you have. You've walked through the fire. You've stood in the eye of ancestral chaos and refused to be consumed by it. You've challenged the silence, the shame, the patterns that were handed to you like an invisible script. And now, something remarkable happens. You begin to anchor. You begin to root into a truth that no longer wavers with the moods of others or the echoes of the past. You become the still point in the spiral. You become the light. But this light is not the naive glow of someone untouched by pain. It's the radiant fire of someone who has faced it all and chosen to stay open anyway. You've seen the worst of humanity in your own home, and yet you still believe in love. You've been abandoned, yet you've chosen to return to yourself. You've been told you're too sensitive, too intense, and yet you now realize those very qualities are your superpowers. What once felt like a curse has become your compass. What once broke you has become your initiation. To become the anchor of light is not to be perfect. It's to be present. It's to hold space inside your own being that is so strong, so rooted in truth, that others feel safe simply by being around you. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to carry their weight anymore. You've transcended the rescuer role. You've learned that the deepest form of healing happens not through control, but through embodiment. When you live your healing, when you radiate your truth, when you choose joy in a lineage addicted to suffering, you send a signal through the entire timeline. The past and future begin to shift. The legacy begins to rewrite itself. And here's the paradox: your greatest act of service is not to save your family. It's to become yourself fully in front of them. That is the medicine. That is the revolution. Not by preaching or convincing or dragging others into healing, but by being a living example that a new way is possible. When you stop abandoning yourself for the sake of legacy, the legacy itself begins to change. This is the power of the multidimensional chosen one. We don't destroy the family, we alchemize it. We transmute the density of generations into clarity, choice, and freedom. You become the one who ends the loop of emotional slavery. You become the one who doesn't pass the pain down to the next generation. You become the one who knows how to hold both the shadow and the light of your lineage without being consumed by either. And in doing so, you open a new timeline, one that never existed before. Your ancestors, whether they knew it or not, were praying for this. Your descendants, whether born yet or not, will feel this, because you didn't just break a cycle, you birthed a new one. But anchoring light is not a one-time decision. It's a daily devotion. It's choosing again and again to return to your own center, even when the old energies try to pull you back. It's choosing to speak truth when silence would be easier. It's choosing to love yourself fiercely when you've been conditioned to shrink. It's choosing to rest when your nervous system has been programmed for survival. These small daily choices are not small at all. They are revolutionary acts of healing that ripple through dimensions. And yes, you'll still be tested. The matrix doesn't dissolve overnight. Old dynamics may try to reassert themselves, but you'll feel the difference now. You'll recognize them not as reality, but as echoes. You'll notice your body's reaction, and instead of collapsing, you'll breathe. You'll observe. You'll remember who you are. And in that remembrance, you'll hold the line not just for yourself, but for every ancestor who never had the chance. For every future soul who will now inherit something different because you chose to do the work. You are the bridge between what was and what can be. And bridges are not built with ease, they are forged with intention, with strength, and with deep love. You didn't come here to live a small life. You came to transform a lineage. You came to anchor a higher timeline into this earth. And you're doing it every time you heal a wound, every time you stop the pattern, every time you choose love over fear. You are fulfilling your soul's deepest contract. So let me ask you one final question, one that only your soul can answer. Now that you've remembered who you are, what legacy will you choose to leave behind? Because your story is not just about what you've survived. It's about what you're creating now. You are the author. You are the alchemist. You are the light that could not be extinguished. And now, the world is waiting for what only you can bring.